this is, as the Chinese have a word meaning danger and opportunity, this is a time of great danger, yes, but it's also a time of great opportunity.
As we know throughout history, there's always two sides to every story. And this final chapter to the story that we're here experiencing now has yet to be written. What are kind of the best and worst case scenarios summed up? And what can people do to resist what is taking place right now?
Well, if we do nothing, then what they want is going to happen. What this cult has done has come out of the shadows over this virus scam and the lockdowns. It's come out of the shadows, it's walked into the room, and it's heard the door click behind it. And that door now is not opening again. And one person who is already feeling that is Bill Gates.
But you don't have a choice. People act like you have a choice. Normalcy only returns when we've largely vaccinated the entire global population.
Basically, an effort for man to merge with machine in a healthy way.
Yes.
To beat machines, you basically have to merge with machines.
Most likely, yes.
You're working to build basically an interface to the brain.
Yeah. Electrode to neuron interface at a micro level.
Okay, what is that? Like, I'm gonna have like a plug in my head that's gonna fit into a hard drive? Like, or how does that work?
Yeah. A chip and a bunch of tiny wires.
This would be implanted surgically. And it would do what? Could you input? Could you download Jim?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What
So in the shadows, people like Gates are having their strings pulled as well. Even Gates, even Musk, even all these other people, Wachowski at YouTube, Brin and Page at Google, etc., Zuckerberg and Sandberg at Facebook, they're still gophers. They're still front men and women. The real power is still the real power.
Do we know who sits at the top of the pyramid, David, ultimately?
Well, if you want to get deeper into it, Spyro.
Welcome everyone, I'm Spiro, and just a disclaimer, if the social engineers on YouTube decide to take this video down, it's going to be posted on BitChute as well. You can find it there. I say this because today I have joining me a very special guest, David Icke. Mr. Icke, thank you for taking the time to be here today.
Thanks, Mara.
Now, recently you gave 2 interviews to a site called London Real. The first interview was just about a month ago, and it was viewed nearly 6 million times at this point. Now, when I had watched this interview, I was thrilled because I knew what you had accomplished at this moment and what it meant. And in that interview, you effectively laid out the entire scenario of this, let's just call it coronavirus situation for now, laying out all the pieces of the puzzle leading up to present day and projecting into the future. It was so profound to me because of how articulate and accurate you were based on the research that I have already been doing, and you were able to encapsulate both the micro and macrocosm at this point to where it made sense, at least to me and from what I've seen many other people. Now, personally, I've shared this interview, your first one, and it really broke through to a greater audience, which was very significant. Now, your second interview, published less than 2 weeks ago with London Real, I just happened to catch it live, and it was just as powerful as the first one, but the second one was removed from multiple platforms, including YouTube, Vimeo, and Facebook, before I even had the chance to share this. Now, David, you've been doing this since I have been in diapers, basically. And in your view, what is the difference between your first and second interview with London Real? And why was the second one removed with us? The first one hasn't been touched.
Yeah, well, the second one was removed so fast by YouTube straight after the live stream finished. And then Vimeo removed it, and then Facebook removed it. And immediately after they did that, Vimeo took down the entire platform of hundreds of videos across a range of subjects, none of them at that time, including this one, on our platform called Iconic. So I'd obviously pressed a button and the elite were running around shouting fire. The question is why? I'll tell you what, Spyro, I have been taken aback just a little bit by the response to the second interview of some of the alternative media who've attacked me for what I said. But why would they delete it? The two things that I said that were that took it on from the first interview were, one, that we need to look at the impact here of 5G and the 5G rollout. Now, this has been extraordinarily misrepresented equally in parts of the alternative media and the entirety of the British media, the mainstream media. Icke says it's all caused by 5G. I'm not saying that. I'm saying we need to look at the very strong possibility that there is a connection. The other thing that I said in the second interview, which got alternative people like a guy called Mike Adams getting his knickers in an extraordinary twist, because he's bought the whole official narrative, was that there is no COVID-19 because it's never been isolated and shown to exist. Now, the emphasis has been Icke's video was taken down because he talked about 5G. Well, that will certainly be in the mix, because not only did YouTube and Vimeo and all that take it down, I don't know if you know, Spyro, but the government broadcast regulator in this country, it's a censorship operation called Ofcom, they have told British mainstream broadcasters, television, radio, BBC, that if they have anyone on their program even discussing a possible connection between this virus hysteria and 5G, they will face serious sanctions. To the point, mate, where a small community radio station on the outskirts of London had one person on saying they thought there was a connection, and Ofcom went crazy. Ofcom, by the way, just happens to be the organization that is promoting 5G on behalf of the government. So obviously there's a 5G connection to the deletion, the ban. But the main point that I'm making is that this virus hysteria has been generated overwhelmingly, more and more evidence is coming out all the time, by re-diagnosing people dying of other things to having died of COVID-19. This is now extraordinary, the level of this is coming out, where doctors and medical professionals, some of which have actually come out and spoken and said it, are being told that if someone tests positive for COVID-19, and they're not even testing for COVID-19, they're testing for a genetic material because they never isolated the virus they're claiming exists, then COVID-19 must go on the death certificate. And this is vastly inflating the numbers. Now, today, YouTube took down another video from davidicke.com on their YouTube platform that had reached 300,000 already in a very few days visits, watches. This was an interview between my son Jamie for the Iconic platform and davidicke.com with Andrew Kaufman. Andrew Kaufman is a medical doctor, a doctor of medicine in America, operates out of New York State. He now specializes in psychiatry. And he's done some phenomenal research into the fact that there is no evidence at all that there is a COVID-19. That interview with Andrew Kaufman did not mention 5G at all. But the two videos have one thing in common. One, mine, I said this virus has never been proved to exist. A lot to know about viruses anyway, more than they're telling us. And Andrew Kaufman's interview, in which he said there's no evidence that COVID-19 exists. So for me, even more than 5G, although I say there's a significant connection, it's pointing out that the whole thing is a complete scam and manipulation of numbers and death certificates. That is the common theme in the deletion.
Now, David, I'd like to get into more specifically how the public is being deceived about this coronavirus situation that has been deemed a global pandemic worldwide. If you could please explain, because we have seen, for example, Dr. Deborah Birx, who is a high-ranking member on the White House Coronavirus Task Force, openly admit in one of the White House press conferences that they were marking down every death, regardless of underlying previous conditions, marking that down as COVID-19 coronavirus, if they in fact had tested positive with this. Can you explain how we are being deceived and the numbers are being inflated in regards to this test?
What you say is a consistent theme, Spyro, in country after country. The CDC in America, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, have also made the same point. If someone tests for COVID-19, COVID-19 goes on the death certificate.
Can you talk about your concerns about deaths being misreported by coronavirus because of either lack of testing or standards for how they're characterized?
So I think in this country, we've taken a very liberal approach to mortality. And I think the reporting here has been pretty straightforward over the last 5 to 6 weeks. Prior to that, when there wasn't testing in January and February, that's a very different situation and unknown. There are other countries that if you had a pre-existing condition, and let's say the virus caused you to go to the ICU and then have a heart or kidney problem, some countries are recording that as a heart issue or a kidney issue and not a COVID-19 death. Right now, we're still recording it, and the great thing about having forms that come in and a form that has the ability to mark it as COVID-19 infection, the intent is right now that if someone dies with COVID-19, we are counting that as a COVID-19 death.
Can you be sure? I mean, you hear from coroners that that's not necessarily the case. Are you sure? How can you be confident about that? And is there any concern that it skews the data that you're trying to collect in terms of projections?
So let's just roll it back and ask what they're actually testing for. This is some of the great areas of research of Andrew Kaufman, the New York State doctor that's looked into this. Some brilliant research. The test they're using, the RT-PCR test, was said by the inventor. It was invented in 1984 by a guy called Carey Musi, or Mullis rather. And he said the test shouldn't be used for diagnosing infectious diseases. Now, what are they claiming COVID-19 is? An infectious disease. What they did in China is when people started getting ill around the wet market in Wuhan, instead of looking at all the possibilities, they immediately said it's some kind of bacterial infection, and then they decided, no, it's a virus. And if you look at what happened in China, Spyro, is what's happened in country after country as this is panned out. First, they start diagnosing this virus, which I emphasize they have never isolated to show it exists on symptoms. And what do they say the symptoms of COVID-19 are? Flu-like. Well, it might be the bloody flu then. And there are so many causes of flu-like symptoms, but suddenly, no, if they have flu-like symptoms, it's COVID-19. So the diagnosis starts to expand and expand on the basis of symptoms. Then they come up with this test. And what they did is they took genetic material from the lungs of a very, very few of the first people that became ill from lung fluid. And they did not isolate a virus. They just said there's a virus in there. Now, this genetic material just happens to contain loads of other stuff that vast numbers of people have in their body as a matter of course. And if you test for that genetic material, in a lot of people, you're going to get a positive. So this RT-PCR test is not, I've had this from so many people. All I've done, Spyro, to put this together is to look at what doctors, virologists, specialists in this area in Germany and Austria and America and Italy, who never get near the BBC or CNN, are saying about it. This is not me pulling it out of the bloody ether. This is information that's come from these people. And so they get this test, which is testing for a genetic code. It's not testing for a virus. They've never isolated it. Now, there's a guy in 1890, that far back, called Robert Koch, and he established what became known as the Koch postulates. These were 4 things you had to do to prove that something was causing a disease. And this has been the gold standard, if you like, as they call it in medicine, for mainstream medicine ever since, to make this connection. A is causing B. Now, first of all, in these Koch postulates, you have to have people with the same symptoms, and you have to isolate what you say is causing it away from all other contaminated genetic material, only that which you say is causing it. You have to then introduce that into a living host, and they have to get the disease. You then have to take material from that host and put it in someone else, and they have to get the disease. Then you're starting to show that cause and effect, A is causing B. None of those things, Spyro, have been done with COVID-19. None of them. So eventually, the Chinese numbers start to fall, actually dramatically. And if you're doing it by scamming the figures and misdiagnosis, well, all you have to do is stop doing that and the figures go down. And it seems, oh yeah, the big lockdown, which has become, of course, the blueprint for what followed in the West, works. You've got to lock down, look, right? And it's so important, and it's amazing how so many people, even in the alternative media, don't understand this. Certainly Mike Adams clearly doesn't. And that's that I'm talking about a global cult that operates a web. And you can symbolize this very simply. Take a transnational corporation, and it'll have a headquarters somewhere, say McDonald's in America. And in all the different locations and countries around the world, the subsidiary companies of the headquarters will operate to the blueprint and the orders and the way of working and the agenda of the headquarters. So you go into a McDonald's anywhere in the world, you go into a McDonald's in everywhere in the world. They're the same because it's a blueprint. And this cult works in the same way. So they will have a network in China big time. China's one of their big centers. They'll have a network in America, a network in Britain, a network in France and Germany, etc. And it's being centrally coordinated. That's why, as this thing's played around the world, almost every country's reacted the same. Not all of them, but most of them. So you orchestrate this in China. And China, of course, is coming out of this very well now because they are coming out economically ahead of everyone else. It's in absolute Armageddon economically. And you start moving it to the West because you've prepared people by saying, oh, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. And what do they do in every country, Spyro, as this has played out? They started diagnosing COVID-19 from symptoms, first of all. What are the symptoms? Flu-like symptoms. You've got flu-like symptoms. You've got COVID-19. People, the medical profession was told if people have these symptoms, they should be diagnosed with COVID-19. Then the test comes in, this PCR test, which is testing for a genetic material code, not a virus, isolated. And lots of people are going to test positive because lots of people have got that genetic material in their body. And suddenly the numbers start to increase. But your problem is you're not dealing with a lethal virus, quote, a lethal agent, so you can't produce the numbers of dead people. So you do two things. This is the first one. You start producing computer models. And computer models are used profusely by this cult to manipulate perception. The same computer model system used to tell us that by now the North Pole would be ice-free are the same computer model techniques that have been used over this virus. So we have a guy in London called Neil Ferguson, Professor Neil Ferguson. He's a professor. He must be intelligent. I hadn't noticed that, but he must be, I guess. And he's at Imperial College, which, by the way, has massive connections to Freemasonry. And so people aren't dying, as they should do, from a lethal virus or a bioweapon or any of it. So what you do is you project it. This has happened all the time. You say, oh, no, it's not now, but oh, a big surge is coming. And this Neil Ferguson actually came out and said at a time when the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson was holding back and pushing back on this. I mean, he wanted the schools to stay open. He wanted professional soccer to continue. It wasn't him that stopped professional soccer in Britain. It was the football authorities. And then came Professor Ferguson's computer model. Between 250 and 500,000 people could die of this virus in Britain. Of course, that was a new definition for insanity. But imagine you, Prime Minister, just as Trump, and Trump, to be fair, is pushing back on this. It seems he's pushing back on it. We don't know what's going on in the background. And you're told, Mr. Prime Minister, this is what's going to happen if we don't lock down and have this massive economic Armageddon and social distancing and all this stuff. And you will be responsible, Prime Minister, if you don't do it. So what does he do? Suddenly there's a lockdown, which has destroyed the lives of billions of people economically and in many other ways. What happens then, Spyro, is once you've got the lockdown, Professor Buddy Ferguson and his like around the world, you have a version of that in America I'm going to come to, he starts rolling back the numbers, and suddenly they plummet from 500,000 to like less than 20,000, he says. But it doesn't matter because the lockdown's in now. And you have this organization in America that's orchestrating the figures, oh, this is how many have got it, this is how many are dying, called the Johns Hopkins University operation. It just happened to take part in the event that you very well exposed some weeks ago, this event 201 with the Gates organization and the World Economic Forum, the 1% Fest. where they 6 weeks before this kicked off in China, were running a simulation about a coronavirus epidemic or pandemic, which and how that played out is how it's played out. And right at the center of that was the Johns Hopkins organization, which is compiling the figures, and all the media are getting their figures, oh, new deaths. And then what you have as part of this playing out is you tell the medical profession, and this is very clear from people who've actually gone public on it, if someone tests positive for COVID-19, this genetic material that isn't COVID-19, then they must be designated to have died from COVID-19. So we've had so many people come to us at davidicke.com, but other people have spoken out too, whereby people have gone into hospital with heart attacks. And what they're doing, Spyro, is anyone who goes into hospital is being tested for COVID-19. And because it's not a virus, it's a genetic material, lots of them are going to test positive. And so when they do, no matter what actually caused their death, COVID-19 is the cause of death. We had a once famous comedian in Britain called Eddie Large, who died last week. He's had heart trouble for a long time, and he went into hospital with heart failure. He was tested for COVID-19 like all the others, tested positive for the genetic material. And when he died, they said he died basically of COVID-19. But watch the language, watch the media language, indeed watch the political language and the advisor language. So often, mate, you hear this phrase, so-and-so died, or this number have died after testing positive for COVID-19. Not of COVID-19, but testing positive for it. And one of many things, this PCR test does not cannot detect by its very nature, is how much of this virus or any other virus that a person has in their body. And as medical scientists have said, you cannot diagnose someone has died of something like what they're claiming unless you can ascertain how much of it there is in their body. Because you need massive, this is the word of one medical scientist, you need massive amounts of it to make you sick, never mind kill you. But this test doesn't test for how much you have. It's a joke. And how people like Mike Adams and other parts of the alternative media could have been scammed by this is absolutely extraordinary, and supporting lockdowns, which are absolutely what this cult wants, because it wants dependency. That's the whole point. Dependency is control. And so what they've done is destroyed the independent income and livelihood of vast numbers of people with this scam. And thus, now, never mind when it's over, but when it rolls out, those people are going to be utterly dependent on the state. Exactly what was planned all along.
David, yes, absolutely. So, as you correctly point out, the whole thing at this point appears to be fabricated or inflated to a great degree. Now, initially, as this whole situation was unfolding, a lot of evidence suggested that this virus may have been weaponized potentially due to the fact that there are these facilities in Wuhan, China, that are right in close proximity, basically right there at ground zero. The events leading up to it suggesting that there was, pre-knowledge, basically, the event 201 taking place, and then the Wuhan military games, for example, which would have provided the perfect cover for perhaps a intentional or maybe even an unintentional release of a virus there taking place in Wuhan. Now, we had also found out afterwards that, for example, Fort Detrick was shut down by the CDC, which is, of course, the U.S. epicenter of a biowarfare program, for the U.S. military and U.S. government, was shut down just before all of this began, by the CDC due to leaks and contamination. Now, basically, we've even had experts come out and say that, this they believe, based on these studies, that this virus has been weaponized, gain of function type technology, and we have even seen now that the Wuhan Institute of Virology had sent their top virologists to the University of North Carolina, for example, to work on this gain-of-function technology. There was a moratorium placed on this type of research, supposedly, here in the U.S., shutting it down. And this is recent information here in the past couple of days, and that the U.S. had then moved that operation to Wuhan, China, and funded an additional $3.7 million into this type of research. And then supposedly the State Department, the U.S. State Department, who always, of course, has our best interests in mind, sent cables, communications back to the U.S. stating that they were concerned about the possible safety of that facility there, that level 4 facility in Wuhan, China. Now, taking into consideration all of that information leading up to this, does that totally discount the possibility that there may be some type of other situation going on, like a parallel operation, perhaps, or would this outbreak, wouldn't that be the perfect cover to actually maybe release a bioweapon, for example, against your perceived enemies like Iran, who has been supposedly greatly impacted by this? Many of their members of parliament have been targeted, or I should say succumbed to this. I would like to get your point on the whole weaponized aspect, as you point out that really the numbers don't support a whole lot of anything here. This is sort of confusing. Please help us clarify this.
Okay, so it's an absolutely fantastic point, and I hope you bring that up because I do want to talk about it. Just one final point on what I've been saying, by the way, which is important. The medical authorities in Italy, and by the way, that area of the apparent vast outbreak of COVID-19 in Italy is a notorious area. It has vast numbers of deaths. It has about 100,000 deaths a year. And the next region of Italy down is Lazio. The last figures I saw, that was 57,000. It's notorious, just like China, for having absolutely disgusting air quality and lots of lung disease. And the health authorities of the government in Italy have said that 99% of people who have been designated to have died with COVID-19 had 1, 2, 3 or more other morbidities, as they call it, other diseases that were threatening their life. And so it becomes so easy to take people who are dying of something else and say COVID-19. This is how it's being done. Now, the point you've made, if you're an alternative journalist, well, not even an alternative journalist, Spyro, a proper journalist, what you do is you look, as you did, at all the possibilities. And I did too. You look at the Wuhan facility. You look at the things that you've mentioned in your question. And you see if they stand up. Now, I don't need any convincing that there are bioweapons of extraordinarily horrific nature in country after country, United States, Israel, China, the bloody lot of them. And I'm not saying that they don't use them. Absolutely not. But as you assess the outcome, and you look at actual events rather than theory or speculation like computer models, you see that the numbers are not there for a bioweapon. Could they have dropped something into Iran? Well, of course they could. But I'm looking at this generally. The numbers are not there to justify that. The hospitals, they're supposed to be war zones, according to the mainstream media, that are now controlled by security, not medical staff. They're empty all over the place, in country after country, because A, this virus is not lethal. that they claim is a virus, and B, other operations and consultancies have been stopped. So of course they're bloody empty. So where are the dead people on the number that would be needed for a bioweapon? And there's something else. You know, bioweapons are all right, but you can lose control of them. And if you start putting it out there, then you can absolutely lose control. And you can kill people you don't want to kill. You know, people say, oh, well, you know, the elite, they'll have an antidote or whatever. Well, maybe they would. But this elite do not run the world by themselves. They run the world through a vast network of compartmentalized people, the vast majority of which have no idea there is a cult or what they're working towards. They only know their little bit. You start putting a bioweapon out, and loads of people who are positively working to your end without realizing it are all going to be taken out as well. You lose control. But if you scam it by controlling the numbers, by death diagnosis, etc., then you can control how many appear to be dying, and when you want, you can say it's over. And what you can do, and this is absolutely going to happen, mate, you can then have a second wave by just doing the same scam. And I would say to, as I have as best I can, to medical staff all over the world, some of you have courageously come out and said that you're being told you must diagnose COVID-19 for things that people haven't died of. You know the hospitals are empty and not war zones. You've got to come out and say so, because your kids' future depends on this as well.
Absolutely. I mean, there have been people who have, like you said, courageously stepped out and spoken out, which is one of the themes that they repeatedly try to silence. That they are trying to silence people who question, people who do step out, which is, David, I know you will never be silenced. You recently found ways around your censorship. Would you mind touching briefly on how you successfully outmaneuvered their censorship of you recently?
Well, you know, I've been saying years, you know, mate. People keep saying, what can I do? There's nothing you can do. Are you kidding? All we did is when they deleted the second London Real interview, is we said, look, pass it to 5 people and ask them to pass it to 5 people. And they pass it to 5 people. Now, YouTube and Vimeo and all these people, Facebook, none of them are involved. Well, Facebook, they can pass it on. But even they're limited how many times you can pass on things that they don't agree with now. I've found that out from this experience. But you can pass it on. And what's happened is this has gone so far out. And of course, we absolutely dropped the copyright idea. Get it on your own computer. Download it. Pass it around. No problem. And that, working outside of the Silicon Valley psychopathic censorship, has got this video out to absolutely vastly more than would have seen it had it just stayed on YouTube. I mean, I'm getting contacts regularly that they're seeing it with subtitles in places like Chile and other countries with subtitles. It's going everywhere. And so they made a big mistake. And I'd like to make this point, you know. Some of us have been exposing this global web, this global cult, for a long time, in my case, 30 years. And people have found it hard, and I completely understand it, to perceive that a few people can control the world. Well, a few people in a few weeks have put 3 billion people under house arrest in effect. So that's gone, apart from the absolute software programs who will never have a free thought in their life. They could do, it's a choice, what they've got to do, but they choose not to. But vast numbers of people have looked at this situation and thought, hang on a minute, a few people can dictate to everybody. And what's happened here, and there's always a silver lining in every cloud, is that this has been going under the radar for a long time. And it's been under the radar, so it's been out of people's even peripheral vision. But I said years ago two things. One, this has got to get real bad before enough people see what's going on. And two, there's going to come a point when they can't stay under the radar anymore. Because if you are going to transform human society in the image that you want, there comes a point where you have to break the surface and actually do it in the realm of the scene where people can see you. And symbolically, what this cult has done has come out of the shadows over this virus scam and the lockdowns. It's come out of the shadows, it's walked into the room, and it's heard the door click behind it. And that door now is not opening again. And one person who is already feeling that is Bill Gates. Bill Gates, on the periphery, most people get on with their lives, not aware of him, manipulating his vaccine horrors around the world. But now he's come into the room and the doors click behind him. And he's got gathering opposition now of people becoming aware of the horrors that his vaccine programs have created. In places like India and Africa. And they're also starting to realize, because people like us are putting it out there, that Bill Gates's money is everywhere over this whole virus thing and vaccines in general. How many people realize that the second biggest funder of the World Health Organization, second only to the government of the United States, is Bill Gates? He owns the place. This guy, Tedros, another guy's never had a thought in his head someone else didn't put there. He was put there simply to parrot the Gates line. Who's been driving the policy, reacting to this alleged virus? The World Health Organization. In other words, Bill Gates, who's just a gopher for people deeper in the cult. He's the one funding all these alleged vaccine studies and trials going on to find a vaccine. He's saying now that nothing can go back to normal and lockdowns can't end until basically everyone on the planet's been vaccinated with his vaccine. He's the guy. I mean, I've just finished a book which is coming out in a few months. 90% of the book was written before this kicked off. And everything that's in the book up to that point, the boxes are ticked in this coronavirus thing. Including the fact that Gates wanted this mass vaccination. And so what he's saying now is that the lockdowns can't end without everyone is vaccinated. And what's going to be in the vaccine? Well, of course, we've got a bloody good idea what's meant to be in it. That's why they want everyone to have it. And in the early part of the book, I've exposed how Gates and this organization he completely funds called Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, had developed what they're calling a quantum tattoo, a digital mark that shows, can be read by technology, if you've been vaccinated or not. And this kicks off with the virus, and out comes Gates. This is what we need to show if you've been vaccinated or not. And if you haven't been vaccinated, well, there's going to be limits on your movement. It's straight from the playlist of this cult, this whatever name you want to call it, but now it's on public display because they can't hide it anymore, because they're having to bring it in where we can see it. So this is, as the Chinese have a word meaning danger and opportunity, this is a time of great danger, yes, but it's also a time of great opportunity, because a lot of people have become wise to the fact that the world's not like they thought it was as a result of this. And Bill Gates is not going to have an easy ride anymore. He's already finding that.
there has been massive pushback that I have seen personally all over social media, and then also dealing with people, here in the real world, where people, Bill Gates may be the most hated person, and I mean, or most despised person, I should say, in the world at this point, due to this pushback, due to all of this being exposed by yourself and many other people out there who are doing this. And I want to quickly touch on a couple points here. Now, at the end of the day, as you have correctly pointed out, it doesn't look like there is any real new significant threat to human life that justifies these global lockdowns, this new police state that we're living under right now. But many people have gotten caught up in the debate of whether this is real or not, or if it's a hoax, or if it's a bioweapon, or if it's 5G or something like that. Now, from because at the end of the day, the end goal is still coming our way. Regardless. Now, there has been major concerns brought up about 5G, and if we're not seeing a major increase in the deaths due to a virus or a bioweapon, then I guess that same would have to apply to 5G as well. And if I'm wrong, please clarify that. But from what I have seen based on my research, and when you talk about this new quantum tattoo that's coming in, from what I have seen, there is this new paradigm coming, this new digital system. And when you speak of Gavi, who was founded by Bill Gates with $750 million seed money, who is part of the World Vaccine Alliance, which is partnered with all of these United Nations organizations. They're also working on the ID 2020 program, which is a digitalized ID for every man, woman, and child, which falls under the UN 2030 agenda. From what I see coming out of this, as they're crashing the global economy, crashing the dollar system, the petrodollar system, out of the ashes of this will be born this new digitized currency, which is going to will be the cherry on top of this international surveillance state, and it's going to be tied into everything, into that little tattoo that you said that they've already been working on. So the way I see it, it looks like 5G and artificial intelligence are basically going to be the operating system of this new paradigm that we're entering, and thus would be they would guard that very closely, because AI is already here. We can't really put that cat back in the bag as far as I understand, but they haven't fully implemented 5G to this point. So that could maybe be a chink in their armor if people are able to try to slow it down, at least locally in their communities. But at the same time, they're going to be beaming it down from space from satellites. So
yeah, there's another psychopath in Silicon Valley. Well, I mean, you swing a cat, you let a psychopath in Silicon Valley. If you're looking at the elite, not everybody that works there, obviously, but if you're looking at the elite, and he's putting, he plans to put 42,000 satellites up, beaming stuff at the Earth, and he's putting up loads and loads and loads all the time through this SpaceX organization. Even the ones he's put up already have got the astronomy community saying we can't see the night sky like we could anymore. So he's already got permission for thousands and thousands. There are other companies, there's one in Britain called OneWeb, that's what the whole idea. What I've been writing about, Spyro, for decades is the development of what I have been calling over the years the technological sub-reality. This is an electromagnetic bubble around the Earth, to which we will be connected. You see, I mean, we don't get deep in the esoteric here, but we are consciousness, and if we open our minds, we can access infinite levels of awareness. That's why some people can see things and some people can't, because they're stuck in the five senses. The idea is to isolate, always has been, to isolate human perception in five sense reality. Now, they've done this through various means, psychological, perceptual manipulation means, but the idea is to create this as they are. This is what the 5G satellites and all the poles of 5G down the road are all about. Create this cloud, as another psychopath in Silicon Valley, Ray Kurzweil, a Google executive, talks about this cloud, to which he says the human brain will be connected via AI to the cloud. And the thing is that we talk about the Internet of Things, where all these cars and fridges and everything's connected to the internet. Well, they want to connect the human brain to this internet as well, and that's what they call the Internet of Everything. And so, and this is in Kurzweil's own words, around 2030, and how often does that come up that year in many and various guises? Humans will start to be, happened before that in some cases, will be connected to AI, their brain to AI. And in his own words, as AI does more and more human thinking will become less and less until it's, in his words, virtually negligible. And the human mind will now be the AI mind. We've ceased to be humans as we perceive them. We have then become basically computer terminals on an AI internet. And who controls AI controls human thinking in everybody. That's the idea. And what this means is that if you create what they're now calling the smart grid, is what I've been calling for decades, the technological sub-reality, connected to everything and the human brain, that grid can then be controlled from a central point. And the world they want to create, they are in the process of creating, unless we wake up fast, is the way it plays out is fascism, communism, yeah. But actually what it is a form of tyranny known as a technocracy, because they want an end to elected politicians. Elected politicians are becoming more and more irrelevant as the technocrats take over. I mean, look at Gates, he's a technocrat. Look at Musk, he's a technocrat. All these other people, Brin and Page, Wachowski at YouTube, they are technocrats, and they are taking control step by step. And so the idea is that these technocrats replace elected politicians, which is what Gates is doing in terms of the global health situation. I mean, look at it, it's happening. It's not a projection somewhere over the rainbow anymore. It's happening in front of our eyes. And this technocracy would be able to be centrally controlled at a central point. And I said in my books, I think this central point is designed to be Israel. Israel, people don't realize, is pretty much second now only to Silicon Valley in terms of cyber control, cyber security, which means massive control, cyber security, and these smart technologies. And people like Netanyahu have openly bragged about it. So this is where we're heading. But to go there, you need dependency. You know, they've created this economic dependency in vast numbers of people, billions worldwide, as a result of what they are doing. And when I say that this pandemic hoax has ticked every box, including one you've just mentioned, cash. What did Tedros come out and say? Gates is gopher. He's at the World Health Organization. You might be able to get the virus off cash if you use cash. And I've been traveling since this thing kicked off, and I've offered cash to places where I always pay cash, and they've turned it down. You've got to use a credit card. Not only that, a credit card that is, sort of hands-free, not pushing the buttons in, because you might catch the virus off the buttons. And we've got the company that runs the ATMs, the cash dispensers, saying that by the end of the summer, as a result of the virus pandemic, cash will be virtually over as a way of paying for things. So everything ticks in the box, and how some people in the alternative media have been scammed into buying the narrative is just extraordinary.
Well, you're absolutely right, David. It does appear to check all of these boxes, and right as everything is ready to roll out, from what I have seen, based on the United Nations' own information, they had created, they helped to support a group called FIDO, which is the Fast Internet ID, or Fast ID Online, and all the big players are involved in that. And this is they're working on passwordless, identifications and everything like this. And they've also established their plan to roll out 5G by 2020 right here. And this was all the way back in 2012. And this is according to the United Nations International Telecommunications Union, which is overseeing the rollout of this 5G program, which is going to be running this technocracy, as you pointed out. And also the central banks, who are all on board with these United Nations programs, just so happen to have their own central bank digital currencies ready to roll out right now. These systems take years to develop as they're rebuilding the entire infrastructure globally. They just so happen to be ready to roll out right now. So a lot of questions as far as this is the timing is just couldn't be more perfect for them. And as you pointed out earlier, Bill Gates was second only to the United States for funding the World Health Organization. Trump just announced he was going to cut the funding for the WHO, so I guess that officially makes Bill the undisputed leader there of the United Nations.
He described himself, Spyro Gates, in an interview in the last few days as a health expert. We health experts. He peddles software. What is he doing running global health policy and saying that people can't leave their homes or move around very much unless they're vaccinated by his vaccines? The arrogance of it. But even Gates, even Musk, even all these other people, Wachowski at YouTube, Brin and Page at Google, etc., Zuckerberg and Sandberg at Facebook, they're still gophers. They're still front men and women. The real power is still the real power, the real, well, I would say psychopathy. It doesn't cut it, not even close to what these people are. My definition of evil is the absence of love. And by that definition, these people are utterly freaking evil because they don't care about the effect on other people. In fact, they get off on it because they're psychopaths. So in the shadows, people like Gates are having their strings pulled as well. I'm sure he's very willingly dancing to the strings, but it's the real power is in the hidden still.
Do we know who sits at the top of the pyramid, David, ultimately?
Well, if you want to get deeper into it, Spyro, in the end, it's not human. We live in a tiny band of frequency called visible light and the electromagnetic spectrum, which, according to mainstream science, the electromagnetic spectrum, of which visible light is a tiny smear, the only frequency band that we can see, what we call the world, is at 0.005% of what exists in the universe. Some say it's a bit more, but not much. So we're actually operating like in a TV channel. But in the same space that the TV channel that we are aware of exists, so do other realities. And I've been exposing now for 30 years, more and more detail, that this cult, which is satanic, it takes part in human sacrifice ritual. I mean, you couldn't make this bloody stuff up. And it goes back a very long time. People talk about the ancients used to sacrifice people to the gods. And they think, oh, yeah, well, that all went on years ago. Yeah, well, there came a point when humans woke up enough to reject all that. So it couldn't happen in the public arena anymore. But it's gone on happening behind the scenes. And these gods, which are described by ancient cultures all over the world, Bible calls them demons and fallen angels. The Gnostics call them archons. The Zulus call them Chitahuri. Islam calls them jinn. You look at how they're described, and they're actually describing the same phenomenon. And it's this force that operates outside the human timeline, which is the common theme through all of this period of control. So people, they're born into this cult, they die. They're born, they die. They come and they go. And it occurred to me a long time ago, hold on a minute, there's got to be a common theme here. There's got to be a common thread. because this has very clearly gone through history, gathering more and more and more power at the center until it's where it is now. And it's this non-human force. Now, this non-human force has a completely different level of understanding in terms of technology. So what's happened is if what this force knew, what was technologically possible, had been introduced to, say, Stone Age people, be no point. Stone Age people don't work it. So what's happened is, over a long period of what we call time, humanity has been developed to become intellectually clever enough to operate this technology and to build it, but not in expansive consciousness, wise enough to see that that's what it's doing. And so we've been moving towards this end game for a very long time, this technological control system. And humans have been brought through to be able to create their own prison. Intellectually clever, no wisdom. So this is how I read it. It's been in my books for years. This technology, Spyro, that is rolling out so fast, seamlessly, look at it. Once the button was pressed on this technological sub-reality, the technology has rolled out seamlessly. There's been, nobody's been sitting around a table, strumming their fingers, waiting for some geek in a garage to develop the next level of the control system. It's just kind of appeared. And it appears with loads and loads of cover stories of how it came about. In fact, there was a BBC documentary a couple of years ago. It wasn't very good because the BBC did it, but there was one interesting sequence. It was about Silicon Valley, and they had this sequence of garage doors. And they said, this was discovered behind this garage door. This was developed by this garage door. And of course they have to drop the garage door now. It's becoming too bloody obvious. Hey, you know, we need another cover story. Too many garage doors. Come on. And so what they do is they create front people who are the fronts of the cover story for how this developed. So you've got the Gates cover story with Microsoft. You've got the Zuckerberg cover story with Facebook. You've got the Bezos cover story with Amazon, a massive cult corporation. That's the idea, as I've been writing for years, is that there is no small business and no medium-sized business, just gigantic cult corporations like Amazon running everything. What has this pandemic done? Destroyed vast amounts of small business and what you call in America the middle class. So you have the Brin and the Page cover story with Google, and then you start to see that the CIA technologically seed funding company, IQT as they call it, and DARPA, the American Pentagon military seed funder of technology, etc. They appear around these companies. It's all a scam. And what's happening is these stories are being developed and these front people are being brought out. They become very rich as a result. And they are bringing this technology in to build this smart control system while claiming it's kind of random and what have you. And another point, which is very relevant to current events, these front people who become enormously rich by being front people, there's a rider to that. You front this up and you'll become very rich, but a very large chunk of that money has to be spent through philanthropy, like the tax-exempt foundations of Gates and the Rockefellers, etc., on our agenda. And if you look at the funding record of the Bill and Melinda Gates foundations, it again ticks every box virtually of the cult agenda in what it's funding, including Common Core education control in America. So you've got George Soros, who has become vastly rich as a result of serving the cult. And because, people say, oh, you have to be very clever to make lots of money on the stock market. Not if you know when it's going up and when it's going down, because someone's telling you. You don't have to be clever. And so Soros's role is to spend a great chunk of his vast amount of money in developing the woke mentality, political correctness, which is the population being manipulated to silence itself, the global warming, climate change hoax, mass migration, all these things that, and also the Arab Spring that Soros money was, and his Open Society foundations were vastly involved in. So that's his area that he puts his money on behalf of the cult. And in terms of Gates, it's health and vaccines. But this is how it works.
Well, that makes total sense. And David, as we have seen this rollout of this current crisis pandemic that we're in right now, it's very similar. The goals of this, it appears, fall in line definitely with this UN climate agenda that they have been pushing that's kind of been stalling out a little bit, but it seems like they've really ramped it up. And this is working in lockstep with that, in my opinion, from what I'm seeing here. Now, as we know throughout history, there's always two sides to every story. And this final chapter to the story that we're here experiencing now has yet to be written. What are kind of the best and worst case scenarios summed up? And what can people do to resist what is taking place right now?
Well, if we do nothing, then what they want is going to happen. My books are full of stuff over decades that's turned out to be true. This is not because I'm a prophet. It's not because I've sit cross-legged on a mountain and pulled it out of the ether. If you can uncover what this plan is through sweat and effort, which yourself are very much involved in, then you can predict accurately the future by simply exposing the plan. Because if nothing comes to intervene to stop the plan playing out, it will play out. And in exposing the plan, you are predicting the future. The whole point of my life, and everyone else who's committed to this, is to create that intervention so you stop predicting the future and other futures start to play out. And you can look for solutions to problems, and solutions, we are drowning in solutions, and they just lead to other problems, and so it goes on. Or you can be sensible and wise and work out the cause of the problem, remove the cause of the problem, and the problem by definition must disappear. And we've had that problem, Spyro, on public display in the last few weeks. We have a handful of people, tiny number of people, even in total, never mind at the core where it's really coming from, who have got billions of people to sit in their homes because they're told to. And that acquiescence to authority without personal thought and perception of, does this make sense? No, it doesn't. Therefore, I'm not cooperating, has allowed a few people to put billions under house arrest. And, it's one of the things I've noticed. I've traveled the world a lot. One of the things I've noticed, we say that, there's this culture and that culture and the other culture, but when push comes to shove in various key areas, people react just the same. We've got Americans under house arrest, Christians under house arrest, Jews under house arrest massively in Jerusalem, in Israel, Jerusalem too, but Israel. We've got Hindus under house arrest in India. So it doesn't matter what your belief system is and your race or your belief system. When push comes to shove, when they press enter, most people react in a predictable way. This is why they could be so accurate in that Event 201 pandemic simulation about what would play out and how people would react, because it's desperately predictable. And if we are going to stop this, then we have to remove the cause of the problem, which is acquiescence to authority and doing what we're told without even questioning the validity of it. And, you know, there's closing in on 8 billion people in the world. The number of people who are controlling events is tiny, infinitesimal at its core compared with that. And if we stop cooperating and we start to get streetwise about what's actually going on, and that if you can see a politician, you're looking at a puppet. Some may be willing puppets, some may be clueless, don't know I am a puppet, but they're still puppets. It's in the shadows, it's in the technocrats where it's really going on. We have a man, for instance, in Elon Musk, who is making the night sky disappear to astronomers, who is putting up satellites. He wants thousands to beam 5G, etc., at the Earth. How many members of that nearly 8 billion people have had a say in that or even been asked? That's the level that's manipulating and dictating world events, way above politicians.
Mr. Icke, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today.
Pleasure.
And, I really encourage folks to go over and follow David on Twitter and YouTube and on davidicke.com if you haven't already. I know you have a massive following. You've been doing this for a long time and putting out some fantastic information. Also, I'd encourage people to go and try out your iconic 7-day free trial that you have going on, which is you're always putting out on your platforms. Very, very solid information that the establishment obviously does not want you to know about. Cutting edge information. Now, of course, we all know that they want to silence us, and I can always just, it's been said, I think, very well that never forfeit your liberties for the illusion of security. Mr. Icke, any final points you'd like to make today?
Well, I'll tell you what's where I'm coming from, and that's all I can say. People are diminished and limited in their sense of self by identifying who they are, the I, with all the labels that we're given and all the labels we give ourselves. And these labels are becoming micro and micro labels as this list of LGBT gets longer and longer and longer. When what we are is just consciousness. We're consciousness. We are the awareness having the experience. The labels are just labels for the experience. I'm having an experience called David Icke, but it's only my experience. I am the consciousness having the experience. And once you come from a self-identity that I am awareness, infinite, eternal awareness, having a brief experience in a narrow band of frequency called the world, then life takes on a different view. For instance, you completely lose the fear of death, which is the fear of the unknown, which is mercilessly manipulated by this cult. Because in the end, what this conspiracy is a psychological manipulation. It's manipulating human perception. That's what it is, overwhelmingly triggering human fear. So what they've done with this pandemic hoax, it's got lots of people in fear of dying, which is one of the great human fears, because the truth about reality is kept from us. So, death which is simply a transfer of attention by the consciousness from the narrow band of frequency which the body focuses on to a much vaster realm when our consciousness withdraws from the body. This is why near-death experiences are describing this phenomenally expanded consciousness that happens when you leave the body. Because the body, what it's doing is focusing our attention within this narrow band of frequency. That's what human life is. Human is simply a way of processing information for a short time. But then we leave. And we're all going to leave eventually, because we don't want to stay here forever. What a nightmare. We've got forever to explore, infinity to explore. We're going to stay here. forever. It's just an experience. And when you come from that perspective and you lose the fear of death, and you lose the fear of, because what do people do when they have the fear of death? They give their power away to anyone they think will protect them from dying. So the doctor, this is where the doctor's power comes from. Oh, doctor, save me. And so once you trigger, and this is what they've done with this pandemic, once you trigger the human survival mechanism, which is connected to the reptilian brain at the back of the brain, and other parts of the brain, like the amygdala. Once you trigger that, people stop thinking straight because the survival mechanism's kicked in. And the survival mechanism says, I have to do anything I can to survive. And so if someone comes along and says you have to go under house arrest for weeks, possibly months, so that you can survive, and you have to go nowhere near another human being except 6 feet, or you won't survive. People are going to do it, and they're going to do something else. They are going to attack and abuse and report to the police anyone who chooses not to do that, because you, with your actions, are affecting my possibility of survival. Why are anti-vaxxers, as they're called, sensible people who question the safety of vaccines, why are they attacked by parents that vaccinate their children? Because it's the survival mechanism. You are putting the survival of my child under risk. You're absolutely not, of course, but that's the survival mechanism again. And so this is what's been triggered by this pandemic hoax, the survival mechanism, which is basically the fear of death. Once you lose that, I'll do this to you. Well, so what? I'm bothered. I'm infinite awareness. I'm all that is, has been, and ever can be, having an experience. And if that means leaving here a bit earlier than necessary or planned because I'm standing up for what I believe is right, then so be it. So it's about self-identity. If you identify only with the labels, this is me. I am Ethel on the checkout and Bill at the cash and carry. That's who I am. Then your view of everything is very, very different to when you, look, I'm consciousness. I'm leaving here at some point anyway. So do what you like, because I ain't stopping. I'm being intimidated by you because I'm consciousness. And that's not intimidated by anybody and not frightened of anything either. They can't cope with that. So what they've done through this period of developing humans to build their own prison is they've used religion, frighten people. If you don't do this, God will be angry. What will happen to you when you die? You will go to hell. And all this stuff, it's all the fear of death, fear of the unknown, being manipulated. And what will God say? Fear of death. That's the very same mechanism that's been triggered by this pandemic hoax.
I would have to agree with you completely there, David. As knowledge is power, and they are the ones in control of the information that we get, the social engineers, through these technocratic mechanisms here. So, again, very, very powerful information, and I can't thank you enough for taking the time to be here today. I look forward to speaking with you again in the future, David. Thank you.
Inspired. Thanks very much. Bye.